All right, welcome to Bill's Barbecue, presented by State Farm. That's Ryen Russillo. I'm Bill Simmons. Just like football, life can be unpredictable, Ryan.
It sure is.
That's why State Farm agents are there to help with over 19,000 agents. A local State Farm agent could be just around the block, whether you talk in person, by phone, or through the app. You know who's there? State Farm. So go with the one with coverage and agents you can count on. You know who else you can count on? The New England Patriots, up to 8-0. 8-0.
It was fun watching. I haven't watched a Pats game with you, maybe ever. Is that possible?
I don't know when we ever would have watched one. It was, to me, I'll remember it as the Freddie Kitchens game.
It really was, man.
Called it. You called the absurd challenge, joking, or you weren't joking. We thought you were joking.
No, I was
no,
like,
he's going to do it.
No, he's going to challenge. I think you could make T-shirts that say "Challenge at Freddie," and everybody would already get it. Like not even halfway through. Well, I guess we're halfway through the season, but it was the offensive pass interference, and you're going, okay, so we've established that this pass interference challenge that you're allowed to do now, the NFL doesn't want to overturn them. Okay,
right?
Like that's what you have to know is that it has to be egregious, and the offensive PI. When you're called for it, they're never overturning that.
Well, how about when it's actually pass interference?
Yeah.
They're also not going to be overturning that. When it's a big play where...
So was.
There was a big play today in the Colts game where there was a pass interference that actually got overturned. And it kind of kept the drive going and got the Colts the win. So I thought that was impressive. I had never seen an actual influential pass interference penalty before.
Yeah, because the whole time everybody's like, wait a minute, why do we even have this challenge now? And part of me is happy that like the thing happened that I didn't think was going to happen. I thought they were all going to become pass interference.
Right.
And that's not been the case. But yeah, the Colts, who had a hard time throughout much of the day against it, still a good Denver defense, pulled that one out late. I thought Vinatieri was retiring. Remember that?
Well, I thought he retired in the first quarter of this game today, but then he ended up winning it with the 51-yarder. But it was one of those, they show him on the sidelines, and he just looks like he's been on a bender in Vegas for 4 days and now has to deal with his wife. He has that look on his face like, oh, my God. And you just feel so bad for him. He's so old.
Yeah.
And then he comes back. He rallies. He rises from the dead.
I want him out there all the time because you still have a pro athlete older than me. So that's big. You know, Steve Nash I was like, just keep playing, Steve. And
Steve
Nash was a big one for me. I'm like,
the back brace, you can barely notice
I'm like, you play 11 minutes and just hit some corner threes. But Steve gave up. So I want Vinatieri to play even longer.
So Pat's 8-0. Cleveland was as terrible as we thought we were going to be. What was your biggest surprise today? And did anything change for you for the first half of the season based on what you saw today?
Maybe your guy, Nick Chubb. Just that there seemed to be
my guy,
one
Nick.
thing. No, but I think that there was one thing against what has been this incredibly dominant defense. Historically, we know where the Pats stand. I mean, this is off the chart stuff. But that Chubb consistently, I mean, he was averaging 9+ yards per carry in the first half.
Right.
Slowed down a little in the second half. But that there was one thing a team was able to do consistently. And I know New England eventually they get up big enough they don't care. But that was actually weird. It was weird to see one thing work the whole game.
And that seems like a thing that other teams should be doing on the Patriots as the season goes along.
Like not just that, like what else?
Well, I just think their secondary is really good. You're going to have trouble if you think you're just going to do 2018 football. I would actually do the old Giants Eli blueprint of just run the ball, kill the clock, do the whole thing. We've seen with Brady, like he has had a tough time getting going in the first half all season. And he'll always throw like his 3 worst passes of the game in the first hour of the game. And then it's like he heats up, almost like he's old. Oh, wait, he is old.
But
it takes like thing. 2 hours for him to get going.
You think if it's all like avoiding the nightshades and it's getting stretch and limber and all those things. Like his whole thing is about being limber and not taking hits because his body is not like as muscled up or callous as other guys. And like part of me is like, maybe that really is the way to do it. But he's had these first halves. The Redskins game in the first half, you're like, oh, hit a bunch of moments. The Giants game was weird, even though he pulled away. So I looked at his first and second half splits.
Oh, I love when you do homework.
Well, he clearly's thrown more passes in the first half, like almost 70 more. The completion percentage goes up in the second half. The yards per attempt goes up in the second half. The touchdown pick ratio goes up in the second half. And his rating goes up. So the numbers tell you. Now, maybe it's not as big of a gap as you would think, but the numbers clearly show he's getting off to slower starts. But by the second half, anyway, the game seems to be over because the defense has been so good.
Do you think they should have stats like, boy, that pass looked bad?
Just
somebody just keeping track because he has a couple of games where you go, oof. And I always know like it's not going well because my friend Hench will text me, and it'll always be some sarcastic thing like, Gramps is starting out slow today. Like, it's like a running joke, but at the same time, it does take them a while to get going. And I think at some point this is going to come back to haunt them. I don't know when. Obviously, every game they've played has been a completely beatable team. It's so, I never know what to do in this situation. It's like either way you lose, where you're like, well, it's schedule, you can't take them seriously. That's insulting to going 8-0. But then if you're like, hey, man, they're 8-0, somebody throws the schedule, there's no right answer.
No, because you have to, like, especially as much as I love college football, when people are like, Minnesota's 8-0, I go, I don't want, like, you're probably losing 3 of the next 4 games. You might lose 4.
Minnesota's 8-0 in college football?
Minnesota's 8-0, yeah.
What are the other 2 things I need to know about college football?
That's not even one of the 2.
That's not even one of the 2? What are the top 2 things?
LSU's nasty.
Yeah, they have good quarterback.
They're going to get you to a game down there.
Yeah.
And that everybody, and Ohio State may actually be the best team, and it feels like there's people are so sick of the SEC that I feel like certain broadcast members now are pumping up Ohio State. Ohio State may be the best team.
They just want to not.
But they're just like, how can I? But I need to finish because I love what you just brought up.
What?
You should have a department at the Ringer where it's like your non-research department or it's your non-analytics group.
Talking
points.
points.
It's just because I have this thing with college football where I'll say like, don't tell me that was a 1-score game. I watched the whole game start to finish. That's not a 1-score game. And then I'll see other 1-score games like that's a 1-score game. And people are like, well, how do you know? I'm like, well, because I just know. I watched it and I know. And you could have one guy run this department and be like, bad throw. Be like, what do you mean? It was a completion for 12, terrible throw. And one person keeps track of all of them, and we have to go with whatever
For receivers, it's should have had it.
Yeah, should have had it. Like, that's not a drop. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
How do you know?
In my mind,
no,
it is.
I have a notepad and a pen.
I have another one where it's like terrible win. So the Colts are 5-2, but they have 2 terrible wins. Terrible. Like today, terrible.
You thought today was a terrible win?
Yeah, because they didn't play well, and all they did was shoot themselves in the foot over and over again, have terrible penalties.
But that was like a completely even game. Like some of those times you go, wait a minute, am I supposed to, like after that Colts-Houston win and what Jacoby Brissett did against the Texans a week ago, I'm like, man, do I have to like look at them more seriously?
Oh, it was a good win.
This wasn't a fluky like tie game.
I just felt like Denver should have won the game. Hey, there were so many different chances for them to just kind of end it. The Colts had basically just over and over again were giving them the game. And then finally they were like, all right, fine, we'll take it. Jacoby makes that great pass out of the end zone.
Right,
that was the play of the day other
Right.
than Watson getting cleated in the face and somehow scoring a touchdown. Anyway, the Colts, though, every year there's that team. The DVOA, I think their DVOA was 21st heading into this game. It's certainly probably going to go down. And there's always that one team that just pulls out wins. And they end up in the playoffs, and we don't know what to do with them. Because they're like, look, this team just wins.
They're even worse. They're 26th in DVOA, and they're the second worst team against the run.
Oh, my God.
So, like, I was looking at a bunch of different teams. Like, I felt like there was a theme today where the Eagles were getting dominated defensively. Now, it was only going to be a 7-3 halftime score, but the Eagles couldn't do anything against a really good Bills defense, okay? And yet, if you look at the Bills, they're this really diametrically opposed team where they're great at running, can't pass, great against the pass, can't defend the run. And once the Eagles got the turnover, have a lead at halftime they shouldn't have had, and they just start running the football left and right, it's like, well, did you guys not look at, like, I have the same website.
Right.
Like, when you
don't skip over that turnover, though.
What's that?
Because it didn't seem like the Eagles were going to score in that game.
No.
And then Josh Allen's up 7-3, just like
fumble 20-yard line right in.
And I just felt like there's certain teams in the league that if they're playing with the lead, I feel a million times better about them than if they're behind by 4. You're like, oh my God, I don't know if they can come back. I think the Raiders are a little bit like that too. The Raiders have the lead and they're able to run the ball and kill some clock. You feel so much better about them than when they're down 10. You're like, oh well, that's it.
Raiders game's a perfect example though, just because that whole game you're like, the Raiders are legitimately winning this game. It's not like a
Deshaun
couple
would not let it
returns
happen.
or whatever, and Deshaun just does this thing which puts him, I believe, in that group of 5 elite quarterbacks now, where at the end of the game, he's like, okay, I know what's happened, and Carr looked good, and Jacobs, the running back,
Carr looked good.
really good.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, it's over. Like I'm done.
MVP, is Watson in there for you?
Absolutely.
I mean, we're not halfway through the season. I feel like we can have realistic MVP conversations.
I think he's this guy that when you watch him every single week, and look, they didn't get it done last week in that moment where I thought it was going to happen again. Like, oh, here we go. But I feel like he has that gear at the end of a game that is why we sit there. Like, there's 15 fan bases hoping their guy turns into that when we already know the answer is like, no. Like you all don't get to be this guy, and that's how special I think Deshaun is.
Well, this will be the last week we talk about him as MVP because J.J. Watt, it looks like it's reports on Twitter that he might have a torn pec.
Can we actually feel bad about this now? Because
What do you
I
mean?
know like the world turned on JJ, but things calmed down, and it sucks that
So
he's
what
hurt.
was the case for turning against JJ? People just feel like he's
They were just
not
like-
totally authentic?
No, it was bad social media a little bit, and then he got mad at everybody else, and then I remember it's one of my most embarrassing moments. We had him as a sit-down interview at the Super Bowl, Kyle and I, and he just sits right down. He's like, I heard you guys think I suck. And I was like, oh, man, this sucks.
That was his opener?
Yeah. I kind of respected him more because he just put it out there.
Was that like Robert Sarver introducing himself to me as, I'm the guy you've been a dick to for the last 4 years?
Yeah, there's a difference, though. Sarver said that to me versus J.J. Watt. I know how I feel.
6'6"?
Right.
Yeah.
So we were like, look, it's just some of the social media. I was like, I don't think it's really been that bad. And he was great. He was really cool during the interview. And then he got up, he walked away. And our producer's like, hey, can I get a pic with the guys? And I'm like, don't do that.
Just let him
Just
leave.
let him leave.
Take the win.
And Watt looked at us, and he gave me top 5 most worthless times I've ever felt about myself. Because Watt's like, you guys punked me, and now you want a picture with me? And I was like, not really. It was my producer. We do this collage. Yeah.
That was it?
That was it.
You guys
Sucked
don't
up.
talk anymore?
No. We liked him. Like, when he came out of Wisconsin, I was like, this guy's insane. Like, watching him all those times.
I think he comes back now. The torn pecs have a tendency to make people feel bad. I plan on tearing. I don't even know if I have enough of a pec to tear, but if I ever need to win back.
I'm not worried about your torn pec.
Who is your MVP right now?
Uh,
It's not Freddie Kitchens.
nope. I don't think it's. I mean, is it
I don't
Rodgers?
think we have one yet.
Is it
well,
Rodgers?
we'll see tonight. It could be Rodgers. I'm glad you brought up Rodgers, by the way. It's time for the State Farm Safe Bet of the Week. The player you can count on, just like football.
Oh, Chase Young, Ohio State. Be my MVP.
Of college?
Yeah.
Just like football, life can be unpredictable. That's why State Farm agents are there to help. Over 19,000 agents, a local State Farm agent could be just around the corner. Talk in person, by phone, through the app, whatever you want. State Farm is there. Go with the one with coverage and agents you can count on. Our safe bet this week is Matt Moore.
No way. Are you
15
serious?
and 15 lifetime.
Are you doing this to mess with me on my?
No, it's going to be Rodgers. How long would you have believed Matt Moore?
I didn't.
He
as soon
was
as you
my
said
safe
Matt
bet to
Moore.
be mediocre. Because 15 and 15, 81.2 QB rating, 46 TDs, 36 picks lifetime.
His numbers are. Yeah, I'm glad you're doing this. When you look at him, they go, whoa.
Full scale, full-fledged mediocre.
Yeah.
But I mean that as a compliment.
Yeah, you're
he's
gonna hang out
actually
forever.
like an overqualified backup QB, but he's like a tweener. Not quite good enough.
A
But
4A
Rodgers,
QB.
who I think people not poured some dirt on, but at least like priced some shovels. And he's been good. I just spat all over the place. He's
You were
been good.
excited.
Last week was his great game. It seems like him and Matt LaFleur are getting along. Safe bet.
So
Safe bet to be good tonight. Although we were supposed to get Mahomes Rodgers tonight.
I know.
Bummer.
Yeah, which would have made a ton of sense with State Farm. You're a big fan of the script writing for those commercials.
I do. We had that guy in a podcast. He came
Mahomes?
in. But the guy who says that's my homie.
Oh, the agent guy?
Yeah.
Who did he study?
Huh?
Who did he study?
He said he looks at a lot of Raging Bull, like a lot of 70s early Scorsese's, Mean Streets. That's where he gets his
like
acting stuff.
most of my stuff is, dead calm. So
Rodgers, safe bet though.
okay, you brought it up though. Like the pricing shovels. As much as I've watched, like Rodgers, now that Mahomes is in the league, you can't ever say, "Hey, Rodgers is the only quarterback who can make that throw."
Yeah.
Right? Like Rodgers had a stretch there where he was the only one that could do certain things, and now that I think Mahomes exists, you can't say that Rodgers is the only one because I think Mahomes can do anything out there.
Right.
But he is the biggest chip on your shoulder athlete, I think, in any sport. In the modern, how you want to go the last 20 years, people that know him are like, look, man, this is why he's tough to get along with sometimes because he really is. He's still mad. He went up behind Alex Smith, and you're like,
Right.
Is he still this mad?
You would put him over Brady on the chip on the shoulder scale?
Yeah, because
Brady's still pissed about 199 and the video of him with no shirt on, all that stuff.
But don't you think Brady or maybe Brady's like still with those around him? Like you don't hear people leaving New England dumping on Brady.
Oh, that is true.
We hear it all the time with Rodgers, and I think
Yeah.
sometimes Rodgers can be abrasive, but I also think he's abrasive because he's like just wired this way that it's like him against the world the whole time. You're like, dude, you've won. But that was happening more this offseason with him than we've ever seen because look, coach finally gets fired. You start hearing more about Rodgers, like a huge expose and like this guy's really, really tough to deal with. He keeps track of all that stuff, and I think that's why we're seeing an MVP version of him again this year.
He reminds me of those actors you hear about that they try to get in the editing room with the director. Those guys.
Give me a name.
I don't know. Any name.
You must know
names.
Like 6.
There's names. There's a lot of rumors about different actors that try to take over the movie or hear some of my thoughts. Damon Wayans. Aaron Rodgers is our safe bet. State Farm. Talked to an agent today. We wanted to hit 2 things. The Brady non-controversy, which became a story this week, where it's like Tom Brady might not come back next year. He's going to be 43 next year. I think he's year to year for the rest of his NFL career, not just for him, but for probably the Patriots too. And I'm not sure there was no real story, but it became a story. Were we just bored, or did you feel like there was a little extra smoke in this?
I think there are certain writers that have a tendency to, if they know it's a story that's going to get a ton of love, they're just going to go with the story even if there isn't much to it. I'm not saying the story is wrong, but I read the story, and Schefter only had one quote from a source saying that Belichick and Brady's relationship was really good right now. I mean, that was kind of it. But we can't help ourselves, so it's so exciting. But, I mean, you're right. He's 43 in August.
He sold his house, and his contract's up. That doesn't mean anything.
Okay, let me throw it to you this way, though. Do you believe that when you're the younger person in the relationship, like he is, to Belichick?
I thought you were saying to Giselle. I was doing the math.
No. It is a different podcast. That there's always like a little bit of animosity of wanting to prove that it was you and it wasn't the other guy. Like, it's always my Theo Epstein theory, that Theo really kind of wanted to leave the Red Sox because he's like, I know you guys handpicked me when I was 22 and had me work in the media department with the San Diego Padres, and thank you for everything, but like, I'm awesome at what I do.
I remember writing about that as well. The Lucchino thing.
Yeah.
When you're somebody's intern or whatever he was for Lucchino, it's hard for somebody not to see you as that, no matter how good you are.
Yeah.
I'm with you. So, but do you really think Belichick feels that way about Brady, though?
I think it's a little different because it's not an intern, right? And you're like, okay, and he realizes how special Brady is. He makes a move that still, believe it or not, was unpopular with a lot of people in Boston and move on from Bledsoe. I mean, that's actually something that happened, which sounds crazy to say 20 years later. But
more people were on Drew's side, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Brady was a different QB then. I think, as you talked about him being one of those huge chip on his shoulder guys, like if he's on another team, I don't know that I'm going to be shocked. But I think Kraft, which, you know what, I should give credit to Schefter on this. I think he was right in saying that Kraft, if he can get Josh McDaniels to bail on a head coaching gig, Kraft can probably make everything right if they all want to come back and do it one more year.
I don't see it. I think it would mean too much to Kraft. And I also, like, what's the team? Where's he going? He's going to go to Chicago for 1 year?
Would you trade him for Garoppolo right now?
It's going to happen? No, I would not. Brissett, I would.
You would think about it?
Dude, like Brissett.
And a fourth?
Good. No, I don't want. Tom Brady should retire with the Patriots. Kobe Bryant stayed his whole career with the Lakers.
Except when he wanted to go to the Bulls.
Well, but the way it played out, he stayed with them.
And the Clippers.
And I think it matters. I think it matters at some point when you've been in 2 decades with one place, and he's already has every record. They were doing records today with him. There was one thing they showed. He had 7 different 10-plus game winning streaks in his career. He had 7? That was an actual stat. 7 different times in his career, he's won 10-plus games in a row.
That's 70 wins.
I mean, by the time his career ends, he's going to have every record there is for a quarterback. And I don't see anybody coming to get them either.
All right, but we talked about those first halves. Like, what would it have to look like where you'd want the team to move on? Because it's not even close to that. And I don't care how bad the first half can look. I still just know that he's going to understand everything thrown at him in a way that very few quarterbacks are. And for a playoff game, like, he's still on my list of 5 quarterbacks I would want to win a game, right? I mean, we're not outside of that, are we?
Well, also, how many cities could he go to? Where would he be happy? He's going to live in, like, I don't know, Tennessee for a year? I don't see.
I think we'd have to know.
It would have to be like Los Angeles, right?
We'd have to think it was, like, really bad. Be like, Belichick DM'd Giselle once before they met each other?
Yeah.
Like, oh, Now
I don't know. It feels like much ado to nothing about nothing for me. We want to talk about the top running backs right now. Just who do you take right now this season? Rest of this season, you could have any running back
All right,
on your favorite team.
You want to know why I think you're perfect for this?
Yeah.
Your Saquon Barkley is the greatest running back of all time call is the earliest, greatest of all time. It's the earliest GOAT call in the history of sports media. It was like the second week.
But I didn't say.
I mean, it was early. You saw me in the hallway. You're like, "Can I come on today?"
I didn't say I was right. I said for me personally, he was the greatest running back I'd ever seen. I can't change how I feel.
Actually, that's a great.
I was just like, this guy is the best running back I have ever seen.
Such a great way to repackage it.
You should feel that way, but that's what I said. That's how I framed it.
But
I was like, I've never seen a better running back than him.
Okay, but didn't you see like a couple weeks in to the career, you're like, maybe this is early?
Did you see him today? I've never seen a guy get more out of less over and over again and make the craziest moves possible to get like 2 extra yards.
How about when he beat up everybody on the left sideline today, just chucking them all out of the way?
It's ridiculous.
It was like that old game day video game where you could just.
He's ridiculous.
Guys with
I still think he's the best. I would.
So
after that.
5.
So I don't know what the order is, but I think McCaffrey's in there.
Yeah.
I think Chubb's in there. I think Josh Jacobs is in there, which was the whole reason we want to have this conversation. And probably Zeke. That'd be my 5.
Yeah, this originated with Josh Jacobs and how good he's been.
I just think Josh Jacobs is a top 5 running back now.
Okay, but that means
I don't know how long it's going to last.
If you're putting Jacobs in there and you're putting Chubb in, who was great today.
Except for the 2 terrible fumbles.
Yeah, that is a problem. You're leaving out. You got to get Alvin Kamara in there. It was easy to forget right now because he hasn't played for 2 weeks.
I left him out intentionally.
Okay.
I don't totally trust him physically as somebody who's like a 400 carry guy for a team.
No one does 400 carries anymore.
Well, whatever. 400 touches, whatever you want to say. Like, they've been very careful about kind of doling him out and protecting him, and that makes me suspicious. The Saints are always like, they don't want him to have 30 touches a game. They want to use him as like, more than a third down back, but less than a 3-play
Then
back.
we'll do this game.
So I would have him like 6th.
It's always like the fun thing when you're arguing with somebody about like, oh, I kind of like my guy, and it's like, okay, so you're telling me if I don't know, it's too early to do the Kyrie Irving stuff already. We probably going to do.
It's never too early.
It's never too early. But like if somebody were like, wait a minute, you'd rather have Kyrie Irving than Steph Curry? Like after Kyrie hit the shot in 16,
yeah.
It's like, is Kyrie actually better than Steph, which was like a stupid 48 hours?
Yeah.
And you go, so if the Warriors offered you Steph or Kyrie, you would say no?
Yeah.
Right, and that's never no. Would you rather have Alvin Kamara or Nick Chubb for the rest of the season?
Nick Chubb.
Okay, all right, you answered it.
I really would.
Dalvin Cook then.
Oh, I forgot about Dalvin Cook.
Okay, so that would be
Damn it. I gotta bump somebody now.
Yeah, we're gonna get there. Because I think it's Barkley, McCaffrey, Kamara, Dalvin, and then I think you got to put Zeke there still. I think Zeke still has to be in the top 5. It's not Le'Veon.
Yeah, so Jacobs is not top 5 yet.
Doesn't seem. He's been really good.
Dalvin Cook's had some moments this year where it's like Eric Dickerson has come back as Eric Dickerson 2.0. And
to me, healthy Dalvin
untackable.
is one of the best 10 offensive players in the league.
Yeah, he's frightening.
Yeah,
that's a good one. So Josh Jacobs, I should have put more thought into my list. Nick Chubb is top 5 for me for life. I love Nick Chubb.
Did you have him on your fantasy team?
I have him on my fantasy team, and it was weird having the
too?
Patriots going against him where I'm like, he's fumbling, it's hurting his fantasy, but it's helping the Pats. You kind of have that moment where you're like, do I care about my own team more than my fantasy team? I realized I did because I was psyched that he fumbled. But you never know. You like to be tested every once in a while. Keeps it fresh.
I do think, though, when the guy's like, yeah, lifelong Packers fan. You're like, but I've got Trubisky going tonight, so go Bears. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
That probably doesn't happen with that fan base as much. It's probably more Chargers.
I think the funniest part of that thing is that somebody had Trubisky going in their fantasy team today.
Yeah, that's what. How many? What do you get? 38
That's where it fell
teams?
apart. That was a fascinating game today, the Bears game. The fans were 8.5, 9 out of 10 angry most of the game.
Up at the half, booed off the field.
Booed the team off the field.
Right.
It was a complete clusterfuck. And then, at the end, of course, their kicker, because God forbid we have a first half of the season without a Bears kicker losing a game. But the energy, the cuts to the fans in the stands were hilarious.
Yeah, they're already on edge because of the Cody
Yeah.
Parkey miss last year. And then Eddie Piñeiro's in there now, and he had a miss. And so Nagy, and I'm normally not this prepped up, but I listened to his post-game presser, and he's turning into like...
Good helicopter. I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
Like, what part? We're in East LA? Live. When I was watching what they were doing at the end, like sometimes the mob, you're like, all right, the mob's going to chill out. But sometimes the mob all sees the same thing and they're right. And you go, what are we doing right now? And they run the clock out. And then Nagy's like, we weren't going to pass. And then he goes, and you can't run because they know we're not going to pass. And you're like, so you felt so good about a 41-yarder, you just shut down everything? And Nagy's had 2 spots now in these post-game pressers where you can tell he's so upset. And he's starting to do the whole thing like, hey, don't start turning on us here. We don't need this negativity. And you're like, man, you're still in Chicago.
It's a weird offense. Their offense goes this way. Instead of going toward the goal line, everything is...
You should draw a map.
Everything, it's like they're just designing, all right, what if we have... It'll be a flea flicker where it'll be a screen pass.
Yeah,
like,
big jet
how many
sweep.
screen passes and sweeps can you run? That's all they are. What's their record now?
I think they're 11th in the NFC.
Are they
right
a
now.
cross-off for you?
Oh, as far as like being out of the
playoffs?
picture? Yeah. They don't, and I noticed this last year. And what Eddie Piñeiro did, by the way, is it saved Chicago Talk Radio from a week of, hey, Mitch did some things there lately.
Right. That's scramble.
Playing the result where you go, that lady, you got a first down out of that. You just, everything's right. The defense is back. No, I thought people were too high on him. Everybody just penciled him in and win the division again.
Did you see what their win expectancy rate was after the scramble?
I hate that stat so much.
I didn't know the answer because I hate win expectancy rate.
Yeah, win probability is the dumbest stat.
Is it win expectancy or win probability?
Win probability. You know what? There's probably 2 different versions.
Are they both the same terrible stat, or is one better than the other? Do you guys know the answer?
Win probability sucks. Let's just start there, and we'll be covered.
It's a 78.3% chance of winning that game. Yeah, I know. I was watching.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. You mean when they were on the 25-yard line and it seemed like they could win the game? Yeah. Yeah, that was cool.
This team was up late, real late, and they had a 98% win probability.
And then something happened.
And something happened. They're like, man, 98% of the time they win. We're like, yeah, but
2%
every
of the time?
Then we'll get some guy being like, you guys don't understand probabilities. We're like, no, I understand.
Patriots, Falcons.
That sucks.
2% win probability.
That's a nice
Came
draw
back.
right there.
It's like, yeah, I know. That was the greatest comeback of all time. I didn't need a win expectancy.
3-4, they've lost their last 3. The Raiders game was abysmal, even though it's a 1-score game. But in my book, it's not a 1-score game. The
Better
Saints
chance.
game was awful.
Better chance Bears making the playoffs or Paul Rudd's Netflix show getting a season 2? If you had to guess, what's the handicap? Rudd show's minus 250 to get a season 2 over Bears playoffs. Minus 300.
3-4, they're still in the mix. I don't know if that's a 1-season deal. I watched the Paul Rudd show.
I know. That's why I brought it up. You're a writer. You were watching what they did.
Right. But I don't want to make it as, I'm in my community of people. I hope everybody gets picked up again.
You think it gets picked up?
I don't know if that was the goal of the show. I don't want to give it away.
Okay.
What happened in episode 8. I just don't want to give anything away.
Okay.
I'm getting teary-eyed just thinking about it.
Any last thoughts before we get to this Packers-Chiefs game? Why don't you give us a prediction? Matt Moore.
Oh, I know what's going to happen.
Mr. 15-15.
Collinsworth, early in the game, is going to go, hey, I watched some of that Matt Moore tape. And I'm going to tell you, he's going to make a couple throws.
Al, he's not bad.
Yeah, there's going to be a couple throws
He's
tonight.
here to win the game, Al.
This is why this guy's he's good in the QB room. Andy Reid, this guy, it's a lock that Collinsworth compliments the hell out of Matt Moore at some point.
He was described as a 10-year veteran. If you had been described at any point of your ESPN tenure as ESPN veteran Ryen Russillo, would you have taken that personally? I'm going to say yes.
No, I never, honestly.
When somebody's just veteran with the years of service, it always feels insulting.
Yeah,
Nobody's
now that I
ever
think
like
about
Tom
it,
Brady, 20-year veteran.
Yeah. Now that I realize it would, yeah. There's
insulting.
better ways to describe.
Veteran means basically like this guy should have been waived a bunch of times, but he's still here.
I love when your agents will say like one of the biggest voices at the network, and you're like, what is, how deep does that go, and what number am I?
One of the biggest voices.
Right, in the industry.
Top 5? I'm not doing another top 5 list after I
Give me your
screwed up
top
the
5
last
voices in the industry.
Top 5.
After the Josh Jacobs call, I'd be afraid like you pick some guys like right
I forgot Dalvin Cook. Sorry, there's all this food around. I'm really hungry.
I didn't even think it was that bad. I was just glad I could help.
Dalvin Cook's over Jacobs. Jacobs 6 though? You okay with that? You're mad that I put Chubb in there. I can tell.
I just don't think.
I think Nick
half
Chubb's
a
incredible.
Season, I think Jacobs 7 games. I think for you to be considered like a top 5 at a position, I got to
just
see
said
like
for
a
rest of the year.
Plus.
I like Josh Jacobs.
He's been awesome. So
he's really good.
I'll leave it at that.
Was he good in college?
Yeah, but I mean, he was in that Bama situation where it's a million guys.
Oh, he went to Alabama?
Yeah.
They're still good, right?
Bama is good.
That's gonna which is my camera? This one? Yeah. That's gonna wrap up our little show, but we're coming back right after? Right after the game. We'll be doing Collinsworth impersonations. I'm gonna revise my top 5 running back list. And
receivers next.
And we should talk about State Farm for a second. When you need a game plan for protection, you know who's here to help? State Farm agents. Yeah.
Sure are.
Personalized service. Their agents are available to talk in person, over text, or through the State Farm app. Go with the one with coverage and agents you can count on. Find an agent in your neighborhood today. How much are you going to eat during this game? We have a lot of barbecue.
Yeah, no, I didn't really get into it much. I was saving up.
I'm going to try not to get too groggy. All right, we'll be back after the game. Enjoy it.